2. It was still morning when Norman parked his Volvo in the small parking lot that the Chesterfield Detective Agency shared with Little Caesar's Pizzeria, a payday cash advance loan office, and a 24-hour laundromat. Norman had wanted to hire a private eye who was a professional, experienced, and cheap. He got two of the three. 30 minutes had gone by, and Norman was still sitting in Ed Chesterfield's office, waiting for Mr. Discreet and Professional to arrive. Norman could hear the grinding sound of the washing machines from next door. That manila envelope was on Chesterfield's desk. It was sealed and had been placed on top of the desk calendar. Norman glanced at the envelope but had no realization of its significance. What caught his eye was all the blank dates on the desk calendar, the worn-out coffee table, and the faded wallpaper. Norman wondered if he had made a mistake in hiring the low-rent Chesterfield Detective Agency. The door opened and 50-year-old Ed Chesterfield entered. He was an unshaven, overweight, crew-cut, sporting ex-Marine, turned ex-warrant cop, turned low-rent private eye. In short, a professional bum. "Thanks for waiting," Chesterfield said. "I had an errand to run." Chesterfield sat a tall brown paper bag on his desk, then plopped his butt in his worn-out chair. Norman got right to the point. "You found something out?" There was a hard knock on the door, the quick, rapid kind that doesn't allow enough time for a response. Susie blasted in. She was Ed Chesterfield's part-time piece of ass, full-time pain-in-the-ass secretary. She shoved an invoice into Norman's hand. "Please make your check payable to—" Susie stopped at the sight of Chesterfield's disapproving eye roll. Susie gave Chesterfield a "you always tell me to make sure I do this" look. Chesterfield's miffed facial expression told Susie to leave. "He thinks he's Sam Spade," Susie verbally jabbed. "Watch The Usual Suspects 5 times. Still thinks Dean Keaton is Kaiser Sose," was her three-punch combination as she closed the door behind her. Norman refocused. "You found something out?" he repeated. Chesterfield hesitated, then forced "I did," out of himself. Norman locked eyes with Chesterfield and waited with irritation. "First things first," Chesterfield said as he retrieved a bottle of Jack Daniels from his crumpled brown bag. It was way too early in the day for alcohol. Norman glared disapprovingly at the disheveled Chesterfield, took a shot glass from his desk, and twisted the cap off the bottle of Jack Daniels. As Chesterfield poured a shot, Norman thought about the disparaging things he was going to say to the company's security guard who recommended the Chesterfield Detective Agency to him. Chesterfield surprised Norman with a, "It ain't for me." After he said it, he slid the shot glass across the desk directly in front of Norman. "I don't drink," Norman responded. Chesterfield's years of experience told him to leave the shot glass in place. Next, Chesterfield uttered the words that would change Norman's reality forever. "Your suspicions were confirmed." Chesterfield handed Norman the sealed manila envelope. Norman opened it cautiously, as if some wild animal might jump out and bite him. Chesterfield continued his report, doing his best to sound professional. "We were able to document several instances of your wife engaging in activities of a carnal nature with a third party." Norman opened the envelope, and something did jump out and bite him. 10 X-rated photos of Denise and Ving stung his heart and pride in the worst way. Denise was doing things to Ving and allowing Ving to do things to her that she had repeatedly told Norman that, according to her strict Catholic upbringing, was disgusting. "I am sorry," Chesterfield sincerely offered. Norman stared at the photos as if he expected them to change into images of him and Denise in Paris. When Norman gave up, he did the only thing left for him to do. He reached for the drink and gulped it down, and he did not object when Chesterfield refilled the shot glass. "Who is he?" In Norman's mind, it was a polite request, but the Jack Daniels made it come out as an insistent demand. Experience taught Chesterfield that focusing on the other man could lead to unintended consequences that could never be undone. So he avoided giving an answer by pivoting to a glass half full tactic. In my experience, most flings are usually based on some fantasy, Chesterfield opined. He tried to give Norman hope with, and fantasies always run their course as soon as everyday reality sets in. Norman stuck his hand in the manila envelope and reached for what was at the bottom of the envelope. I can recommend a licensed marriage counselor, Chesterfield advised. Chesterfield sensed Norman's deep grief and he continued to sincerely try to help him. She has over 20 years of experience and has helped thousands of couples, too. What's this? Norman interrupted as he held up the mini cassette player. Audio confirmation, Chesterfield replied. There is a DVD as well. Norman decided it would be too painful to hear the sound of Denise having sex with another man. He put the mini cassette player back into the manila envelope. You never answered my question, Norman complained. Chesterfield feigned ignorance. He tried to look puzzled. Once again, Norman asked, Who is he? Your wife runs a one-person business. She does tax preparation, accounting, and bookkeeping. On-site and office visits. Is Denise screwing one of her clients? Chesterfield took a short, deep breath. Ving Furman. Chesterfield regretted saying it before he even said it. It was the first time Norman had heard the name Ving Furman. Ving Furman, Norman repeated, with bitter green envy in his voice. Chesterfield offered Norman the business card of his marriage counselor friend. Norman took it with zero intent of calling her. And who is this Ving Furman? Norman inquired. It doesn't matter who he is, Chesterfield reasoned. Stray Dick is Stray Dick. It matters to me, Norman muttered. It's impossible for it not to. Chesterfield discerned that Norman's pride was like a scratched vinyl album that had captured a playback needle in its groove. No amount of ducking and dodging would suffice. Chesterfield relented. Ving Furman owns and operates a jewelry store. Is he successful? In order to be located in Bloomfield Hills, he would have to be. So, every day, Ving Furman handles thousands of expensive diamonds, pearls, and rubies. Norman spat out bitingly. But he couldn't resist fondling my one and only thrift store fugazi? Norman sat there in silence. His inner emotions shifted between rage and depression. Chesterfield had seen it before, enough times to know what was going through Norman's mind. Norman. Chesterfield reached into the bottom drawer of his desk and retrieved another shot glass. He poured Jack Daniels into the glass and refilled Norman's. Chesterfield drained his drink and set the empty glass down. Norman matched his gulp. At this moment, Chesterfield no longer treated Norman as a customer, but as a friend, someone he felt comfortable talking to man. Chesterfield held up the bottle of Jack Daniels. One day, he lamented, the world might just run out of Jack Daniels. He set the bottle down and admired the famous logo. Heaven forbid. Or it might run out of oil or toilet paper, he continued. Norman's eyes were transfixed on the photos of unrestrained passion in his hand. But the world is never going to run out of young and beautiful women, Chesterfield declared. Chesterfield had hoped that stating such a simple and absolute fact would cause Norman to focus on his social future. Don't chase her, Chesterfield opined. Replace her. Chesterfield's words may have reached Norman's ears, but they did not touch his mind or heart, or pain. Norman was unmoved. Literally. He sat motionless with his eyes transfixed on those damn photos. No doubt you are considering what other options are available, Chesterfield surmised. You have two. Norman finally slid the photos and mini cassette player back into the manila envelope. What was left in his hand was Chesterfield's invoice. He looked at the numbers. He had no idea if they were reasonable or not. He didn't really care. He retrieved his checkbook from his suit jacket. Option number 1, Chesterfield plainly stated. See a lawyer. Norman wrote out the check, signed it, and placed it on Chesterfield's in need of a serious polish or replacement desk. Chesterfield nodded appreciatively as he picked up the check. Option number 2, which Chesterfield's tone suggested he was advising. Forgive and forget. Norman looked at Chesterfield. This man must have never been cheated on, Norman thought, or stood up. His only relationships were probably one-nighters with drunk strippers and welfare hookers. Option number 3, Norman said with bitter and angry eyes. Ving Furman. Norman stood up. The shots of Jack Daniels and the wobbly chair with its uneven legs challenged his balance, but not enough to stop him from heading to the door, focused and resolute. Where are you going? Chesterfield asked with genuine concern. To see Leo, the lawyer. Norman stopped to think about it. He considered other options. Or load my gun. Do you think you can murder your way to happiness? Chesterfield asked. In my experience, Chesterfield said with a warning tone in his voice, when a man commits murder, or tries to, he ends up killing his own future. Is that so?